The Australian Music Vault would like to welcome everybody's favourite singing sisters, Vika and Linda Bull. Whether singing with the likes of Joe Camilleri, Paul Kelly or Kasey Chambers, or whether performing on their own, they always bring a very, very special kind of magic. As Marlon Williams says, the moment they come on stage, the temperature changes. In my experience, it goes through the roof. Welcome, Vika, and welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
We're going to go way back. We're going to take you on a little journey. But just in reference to that Marlon Williams quote, was there a time, and I'll start with you, Vika, when you realised that you had it within you, you had the power to really move a room?
Well, that, for me, Brian, it's a hard question. I think because Linda and I have been singing together for a long time, we have that unique sound of being sisters and having that harmony. So I think when we joined the Black Sorrows and became backing singers for Joe, and we were very, very green, and we learnt very, very quickly, and he moved us from the back right to the front, you know, within a couple of months. So it was standing on stage with Linda, harmonising with Joe and having that beautiful blend and that beautiful sound. And it was when I heard that and when I heard that the audience loved it, I could see the reaction. That, for me, was like quite a powerful moment. So it was a long, long time ago. It was, you know, I was only like 22 and Linda was 20. But it was just that sound. It was like just seeing the audience kind of, their ears prick up when that sound came out of our mouths. I think it was like, oh, okay, they like it, I think. I think.
Linda?
I think I agree with Vic. It's a funny thing. We grew up singing together for so long. We learned how to sing in harmony from such a young age that you kind of just sing for fun. You don't realise that that is a weapon. And I'm like Vic, I agree. We were standing up the back at the Central Club in a club in Richmond in Victoria.
Yep.
Maybe it was like we were 3 weeks into our new job with the Black Sorrows and we were standing up the back. We didn't have any moves. We didn't really know how to kind of engage an audience, but we realised pretty quickly that we needed to do something. And so then we started doing our Tongan moves. And it was the combination between the move and the singing, because our harmony, we trusted that already.
Yes.
But it was when we started to figure out that those two things together could be visually and, you know, exciting as much as orally. So that was kind of like for me, oh, this is something that we can do. And then he moved us up the front the next show. When Joe sort of turned around and saw us moving and singing, he thought, okay, I'm whacking them up the front. So that was the moment for me when I knew it was a combination between singing and movement.
And you never went back to the back?
He never sent us back.
Really?
No. We stood next to him for 7 years.
Yeah.
And I read, well, let's just stay with the Black Sorrows for a moment because it was a really important part of your career. He would give you little spots within his set as your tenure went on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very generous.
Can you remember what songs you used to do?
Oh, we had a very different, you know, experience because Vika seemed to be able to respond to Joe's request instantly, Change of the Wheel being one of them. I won't speak for you, but I couldn't ever get it right. I found it really difficult to find a song that matched my voice and my type of style of singing. So he would throw so many songs at me and I just really stuffed most of them up.
What, on the spot or in rehearsal?
In rehearsals and for records.
Yeah,
but
right.
On the spot, I think Vika got more of that because she was more successful at it because she was better at it than me. And you just finally...
I wouldn't say that.
I do.
No, that's not true. Linda was just a little more, she thinks a little deeper than I do. So it's like, you know, what are you saying in the song here, Joe? Oh, I don't like that lyric. So she wouldn't like to sing it. Whereas I don't care. I'll sing anything. Just sing it my way, you know. And so that was why. She's a little pickier than I am.
Are you still like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. It's getting worse in our old age.
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse, Brian.
That's interesting. Well, also with this, in these sort of political times, do you find that that's where you are wanting to assess the meaning behind a lyric, say?
Oh, yes.
Or you were always like that?
I was always like that. I was always, how can I tell a story if I don't understand the story?
Yeah.
And, you know, even when we working with someone like Paul Kelly, he, you know, it's difficult. You don't want to ask somebody, I don't understand what you're saying. Very rarely do we have to ask him because he's, you know, his songs are so, I don't know, I just get them.
Yes. All right, let's go back. Let's go way back. I wanted to ask you about the importance of your Tongan heritage firstly in your family, but also in your music.
Well, it's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very important. Because our mother is Tongan, our father is Australian. And when Mum came to Australia and met Dad, Dad embraced the Tongan culture and he wanted us to learn as much as possible about Mum's customs and everything. Even though we were living in Australia, he wanted us to know because from a very early age, we were made, people sort of would ask us, where are you from?
Yeah.
And we're like, you know, they're constantly asking us. And it was like, well, we're Australian.
Yeah.
But it sort of, it always comes up. Yeah, but what else? What's your heritage? Well, we're Tongan. So, you know, it's very important because people want to know. And Mum's very proud of her heritage. And so she made us go to church. She made us hang out with the Tongans every weekend. We go on camping trips. We have barbecues.
Right.
And Dad loved it. The Tongans were welcome in the home. We had to listen to the singing. We had to go to church every Sunday and listen to the Tongans sing. They come over with their guitars and their ukuleles and sing in the backyard.
How did you feel about that? Like, did you not resent it? That's too strong.
Embarrassed.
It was embarrassing. I hate to say that, but, you know, we grew up in suburban Doncaster and we were possibly the only dark-skinned kids in our primary school.
Yep.
And in our court. And it was one of those things, it's like when you're a kid, it's kind of like don't shine a light on the thing that makes you the most special or, you know, that makes you stand out.
Yes.
So the Tongans after church would come back en masse with their instruments. They'd dig up the backyard. It was like, you know, the neighbours were just like, you know, I can just remember them standing there with a hose going, oh, God, what's going on here, you know. Lots of singing, lots of feasting, lots of noise. And we would just hide under the bed because we just didn't understand that this was a good thing, you know. When we were pulled up by our parents and said, don't you do that, that's wrong, this is your family as much as your Australian side, then we got into the swing of things. And it took a while, though.
It took a while, yeah. I think the most embarrassing thing was when there'd be a death and the Tongans would come over and wail. And the wailing would just, you could hear it in the next suburb. It was
intense.
It was intense, yeah. And it was confronting too as a child to hear that because,
of course,
you know, and but Dad and Mum, Dad didn't sort of try and hide it or try and he was like, this is what your mother does, you know, this is what they do. So,
and he still doesn't. I mean, I think that, you know, we always said that we're Australian and no one ever believed us. And so now that the focus is a lot on our Tongan heritage because of the way we look, but in our singing, the influence was from the church.
Yes.
The Tongan singing is beautiful. It's very moving, and we didn't realise that church was boring because it was a lot of the time in Tongan.
Yeah.
So it was 4-hour services every Sunday when our friends were playing basketball and mucking around, you know, the oval and going swimming to the pool. We'd have to sit in church. But
4 hours.
4 hours, yeah. But that's souped in. That is the thing that we didn't realise, that this was all coming in to our heads, and we were learning the structure of harmonies and that loose kind of way they sing, and we knew that the power of when they got it right was really moving, and I think that's the thing that we hung our hat on later as singers, is that is what we were going for. It's like, okay, the bar was set really high as young kids, so when we started singing, we knew what we wanted to sound like, and I think that's the influence of the Tongans, not just their beautiful nature and their way they treat everybody and their kindness, but the singing is the thing that stuck.
Was there formal music education for you, or you soaked it up?
Mum taught us how to sing in harmony. So she could hear that we could sing, hold a tune, because we'd sing along to the radio all the time, and then she taught us how to sing in harmony. She sort of knew that I had the higher voice, Linda had the lower, so she taught us our parts. So every time we get up and perform for the family or, for the church, we'd learn a little song in harmony and up we'd get. Later on, when singing became our career, I went and had lessons.
Vika learnt piano too.
Yeah, and learnt how to breathe and expression and all that sort of thing. And then when I lost my voice, I had to go back again and have training.
Yes.
So, yeah, there was that sort of thing. But as kids, it was mainly just listen, ear.
Tongans still, they use their voice to cut through. They all want to be heard.
They sing their traditional hymns because of the missionaries.
Yes.
But they're all sung in Tongan, but in harmony, and it's so moving and so powerful that
People cry.
Yeah, but it's loud as well. And our mother, she's got a very powerful voice. So when we'd go to church and she'd start singing, Linda and I were instantly, like, that was another time we got embarrassed, wasn't it, in church, because Mum was the loudest singer in the congregation, and we'd be sitting next to her and be like, oh, here she goes.
She goes.
Yeah, we'd just sort of, can you make it a little quieter, please, Mum? But it's just the sheer volume of when the Tongans get together and they sing. It's just pure and it's loud and it's powerful and it's something to hear. When we were young, there was only like one Tongan church.
Yeah.
So because there weren't that many Tongans here, and we were going to a church in Kew. That's where they had their first church, and so the congregation was probably only 100 people or so. So then you go to Tonga and you've got like a church full, 300 Tongans. Yeah. So of course it was completely different. It was like, and then you'd have a choir
and brass.
And sometimes a brass section, but then you'd have a choir that would lead the congregation. So they would learn their parts and they would start the song and then the congregation would join in. So you've got that choir that are rehearsed and then the Tongans joining, and it was just like, it's scary.
I remember us going, sitting there as kids and it's a very sort of call and answer too. They yell out and they answer back. But then we'd be sitting there and up would pop, some guy with this massive tuba and play, Tongans love a brass band, and they'd all play. And we were just like, what the blazes is going on, and then the choir would get up. It was quite active, more active than Australia, but I loved it.
We've taken people back to Tonga to hear just so they can hear the singing in church.
And do they love it?
They're very moved. They're very moved.
We took Paul Kelly back recently, and I think he had that. I was interested to see his reaction because he's known us for so long, to hear that singing, and I could see him his eyes sort of widen.
He wanted to go to church next week.
Yeah, he said, I'll be back next Sunday.
He was up and ready to go to church. Yeah. The next week. I was like, okay. Yeah.
We took our band when we were in the early days. We took them back to Tonga to sort of understand where, we wanted to make an album drawing on our cultural heritage. We wanted them to understand before we made that record. And they all burst into tears, when we took them to the carver clubs and took them to church, and the boys were quite moved by it. That was, good that it wasn't just us.
Let's jump back a bit. Vika and Linda are learning to sing via the church and via your mum. When does it get a little bit more serious?
Well, Mum knew I was going to be a singer. Mum and Dad always said she'll probably be a singer when she, grows up. And, of course, I left school in year 11 and said to Mum, I'm going to join a band. And she said, no, you're not. So I had to get a qualification first. And I said, right, I've got my qualification, I'm off, I'm going to join a band. So I joined Fear of Flying. Then I joined a band called Sophisticated Boom Boom. And then Linda came and joined Sophisticated Boom Boom with me. And it went from there.
And was it a natural thing that your sister would join? Was there a a sibling rivalry? Were you happy that Linda was part of the band?
I asked her to.
You're right.
I had no designs on being a singer, Brian. I was studying to be an art teacher.
Yes.
But I wanted to be an artist, and I never thought I would be a singer. We just did it for fun. We sang at home for fun.
Yeah.
When I first saw Vika sing in clubs, I realised, she's gone. I didn't realise she could sing that well. We just sang. I didn't realise she was singing Respect. She was doing an Aretha Franklin song, and we were shocked. I couldn't believe it, what I was hearing. Really, Mum and Dad and I were all just standing there going, wow, that's a lot, you know. And then I knew that Vika that was her path. But I didn't think I would follow, no.
And so what led to you joining?
Oh, I wasn't a very good artist.
I thought you were.
Oh, thanks. Vika asked me to join her because I was whinging about not enjoying my course.
Right.
And she said, well, why don't you come sing with me? And I was like, okay.
And so Sophisticated Boom Boom.
Yeah.
Were you doing gigs? Where were you playing?
We played like Subterrane, which is in Swanston Street up there near the top end, near opposite the Melbourne bars, Melbourne Pool.
Oh,
Melbourne,
yeah.
Right. Lots of little places, lots of great pubs. Royal
This is
Derby,
early 80s.
Yeah. Early 80s.
Prince in St Kilda?
Yep.
Gee, it's going back a
The
long way.
SB.
The SB.
maybe?
The SB, all those little places. We did a lot of gigs around Carlton, and we all played a lot with the Swinging Sidewalks. We were like a double act.
Yes.
And so that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of great musicians that we got to meet and hang out with, and that introduced us to a whole new world of music, you know, because we came straight from...
So you've come from the church, but Sophisticated Boom Boom is a more rhythm and blues.
Yeah, it's late 50s, early 60s girl group band.
Yeah, right.
So we were singing like, you know, Leader of the Pack and Heat Wave and all those sort of songs. And
Great songs
which
to
was
learn.
great for Linda and I because it was harmony. It's 3-part harmony. There was 3 girls up front. So it was Linda Boom Boom, Jenny Boom Boom, Vika Boom Boom.
And were the Boom Booms, you know, did you feel like, okay, we're going to make records, we're going to tour? Was it particularly, it was for you, Vika, but Linda, were you still thinking, I'll go back to art?
No. I knew when we started and I joined that band that I wouldn't go back. I knew that we were getting... I was always conscious that we needed our own sound, but I had no intention of going back because I loved singing. It was easy.
Yeah.
I didn't find it difficult. I don't know, that might sound egotistical, but it was never difficult. It was just like, that's pretty easy. Singing with Vic was really easy.
And were you doing some Tongan moves at this point?
No, it was all this.
Jenny Boom Boom did all the choreography.
Yeah.
It was really her band. Jenny Boom Boom went out with Steve, did a double bass player. Purcell. They were a couple. So Jenny made all the costumes and did all the dance moves. And
Great.
yeah, it was so much fun. And Steve was the one that introduced me to Etta James. So,
Okay.
you know, and yeah, because they were listening to, you know, all the late 50s, early 60s R&B, all that kind of music.
Because you were Countdown gals, weren't
Yeah,
you?
we didn't grow
were.
up on that sort of music.
Nah.
It was all new.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were top 40, Sherbet, Skyhooks,
Yeah.
you know, Charlie
Singing
Pride.
with a comb or a brush or a hairdryer.
Yeah, we just listened to what was on the radio. on
Charlie
Countdown.
Pride wasn't on Countdown.
Countdown.
That was
Oh,
Mum's record collection.
Oh, I love him so much. Yeah, but we listened to
Yeah.
that sort of music. That was an eye-opener.
And interestingly enough, Australian Crawl, probably, Jojo Zepp,
Yep.
sports, people who you
Dots.
ended up
Kelly and the
singing
Dots.
with.
Yep.
That's
So weird.
Well, that's the weird thing. I remember going to see Paul Kelly and the Colour Girls, I think they were called back then. And I went along there to see Paul, and Sophisticated Boom Boom were supporting. Now, I wasn't in the band at this stage. And
This has happened our whole lives.
yeah, it's happened a lot. They came on stage. I thought, geez, I love that band so much. I would love to sing in that band, but I wasn't really singing. I was just starting.
Yeah.
And then Paul came, and I absolutely loved them. I thought they stole the show. And then Paul came on, of course, he was fantastic. And yeah, ended up singing in both bands, which is just like...
Isn't that incredible? And all those Countdown bands.
All the Countdown bands and all the bands that, some of those big stars that ended up on Rock Quiz, you
Yeah.
know, we're sitting there thinking, pinching ourselves, thinking, this is so strange
Yeah.
that we get to sing with the people that we idolised.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's so great. Yeah.
So wonderful.
It's not lost on us.
Good.
We know. You know.
I read a great story where, Vika, you were working on the front desk at Platinum Studios and someone dropped out
Yes,
and
yes.
you were asked to fill in. Tell us that story.
I was the night receptionist at Platinum Recording Studios in Chapel Street in South
Yes.
Yarra. And a lot of bands used to come there and make their records. And Rebecca Bernard came in.
Yep.
And I don't remember who she was singing with, but she was doing some vocals, and the girl that she was singing with had lost her voice. And everyone piped up and said, well, Vika can sing. This is all the staff at Platinum.
Yeah.
And I went, what? And Rebecca's ears pricked up. She goes, can you? And I said, well, a little bit. She goes, well, you want to come sing with me? So she was really lovely. She held my hand, took me into the studio and taught me the part. I mean, that was my very first session.
Wow.
Yeah, with Rebecca.
What was the song?
I don't remember. It might. When We're Doing the Moon, I think it was
you
called.
just remembered it?
Yeah. It was something about the moon, and I loved it. And I loved Rebecca's voice too. I thought, she's got a beautiful voice.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And
She has.
yeah, no, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget she was the first one.
Yeah.
She was my first.
She was your first.
Yeah, she was. Well, Linda was actually.
Yeah.
I
So
don't count.
let's go back to the Sorrows for a moment. How did you end up joining them?
Well, we had worked around the clubs. After we left Sophisticated Boom Boom, Vika and I got our own band together called the Honeymooners.
Yep.
And we were doing soul covers and playing around places like the Royal Derby, the SB clubs around Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we just started that band when Peter Luscombe, who was in the Black Sorrows at the time,
Yep.
went out looking for 2 backing singers because in the Black Sorrows they had used Vanetta Fields, the legendary Vanetta Fields,
Yeah.
on all their records and touring, but she was off with John Farnham,
Yep.
and so they needed to find a replacement. And Pete went out and saw us sing one night. We'd met Pete. He'd seen Vika sing with John Justin, and I'd met him through our guitar player, Jack
Yep.
Abaratney. So we kind of knew of each other. But he came and saw us sing in the Honeymooners at the Derby and thought, that'd be a good fit for Joe. They'll be a
Yeah.
good fit. They're sisters. They can blend together. They can room together.
Yes.
Saving money on the
Good.
road. They've got each other's backs, and I'm going to recommend them to Joe, which he did. And he recommended we audition. He gave us 6 songs to learn, Vika and I learnt them. Wow. We learnt them well.
Yep.
And because we knew of Joe from Countdown.
Yes.
You know, we loved his music. We loved the Falcons. And so we went in, auditioned, and we got the job.
And how was that audition? Scary? Although you probably knew those songs.
Well, they were the new
No,
Black
they were the
Sorrows
new
songs.
ones.
Okay.
It was Hold On To Me.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't know them.
We didn't, because we knew Hit and Run and Shape I'm In, and
Yeah.
Taxi Mary was another favourite. I was sort
yeah.
of hoping you'd do that.
Yeah.
Never got to sing that song, but
Only Jane Clifton can do that.
That's right.
they were all new.
I remember Vika wore a very short skirt
did you have to say
to the
that?
audition. Yeah, Joe loved that. That's probably why we got the... No, I won't
Did
say.
you question her? Did you say, Vic,
No.
I don't know about that dress?
great
Hey, mini
pins.
skirts were in then.
You look
okay?
great. You look
Yeah.
We actually got the audition because we were prepared.
Yeah.
I think he could see that we'd learned our stuff, and it was songs like Fire Down Below and things like
I remember
that.
it was at Factory Sound. The audition was at Factory Sound.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where we all rehearsed in those. That's why I rehearsed with Fear of Flying, my very first band.
Yep.
The Boom Booms, and then back there for Joe. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, find myself here again, but with a better band this time. Because I
So
just
who was it? It was Wayne Burt,
Jeff
Jeff
Burston,
Jeff Burston, Lucky.
Mick Girasole on bass.
Okay.
and Lucky on the drums, and Joe.
Wow.
Yep. So we were only meant to join for 6 weeks, but we just clicked
And you ended up touring
for 6 years.
6 years.
Yep.
Non-stop.
Non-stop. Such a great way to learn how to sing
Yes.
because, we were battling a loud band. Like I said before, we're standing up the back. We had to get our
Yep.
stagecraft together
Yep.
very quickly. And they were all older than us, so they,
They were
they're
experienced.
experienced.
Yes.
We trusted that they looked after us, and Mum wasn't happy that we were she'd lost 2 daughters to singing, but I think...
But I think the beauty of joining a band like the Black Sorrows was that musicianship. They were so good at their instruments, and and we were very, very inexperienced. We were green, and so we learnt very quickly. And then growing up in the 80s pub rock and roll scene, that was tough.
Yeah.
Singing 6 nights a week in smoky pubs was just... And, having to get over everyone's amps because that was before in-ears. So we were, always like having hoarse voices.
Constantly hoarse.
Because we were smoking too.
Yes.
It was stupid.
Not like you were looking after yourself.
No, we'd
it's
walk
ridiculous.
off stage and have a drink in a break, have a whiskey and then
Even have a
cigarette.
fag,
have a
and then
ciggy.
go
get
back
on
and
stage.
sing. That's stupid. No wonder we lost
we
our
survived.
voices. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was good because we grew up real fast,
Yep.
and then just having, Jeff, I remember Joffa, that's Jeff Burston, he'd sit there smiling at us going, your time will come, girls, and he'd be sitting on stage with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth playing guitar. Yeah. Sometimes he'd go over and just pop the ash off while he's mid-solo. That was fun. But yeah, just the way they played and hearing them, the musicianship was like, wow,
brilliant.
Was just amazing.
And a great teacher, I would imagine, Joe, in his own inimitable style.
Yeah, because the thing about Joe that really impressed us, I think, was not just his great voice, his power and his charisma on stage.
Yes.
He always treated his audience with utmost respect.
Yeah.
I'm going to win you over.
Yep.
It was that determination it doesn't matter if you ignore me, I'm going to get you. And he always did. And that was good for us to see how he never quit, like he just wouldn't quit.
And if there's another band following...
Look out.
Look out.
You don't want to follow Joe.
No.
Well, he's a great saxophone player. I think he's one of the best.
Yep.
And just hearing him play that every night was just fantastic. And I don't know about his guitar playing so much, but his voice, just the way he can, sing and scream and jump up and down, and
It's remarkable.
It is, and the fact that he's still doing it, that he hasn't lost any of that. He's still energetic.
Yeah.
He's so youthful, and I think it's something that young musicians can study and go, okay, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Why is he so fit? Why can he still sing like he's 20 years old?
Yeah. He loves it.
What's he doing? What's his secret?
But after 6 years, you decide it's time to change. You want to make your own record. How was that, saying goodbye, handing in your notice? Was Joe shocked? Did he see it coming, do you think?
Yeah. He saw it coming. The writing was on the wall because the rest of the band had left as well.
Right.
So we gave him 1 year's notice. When we handed in our resignation, we said, we'll give you 1 year.
Yep.
We're not going to leave you in the middle of an album tour. We're not going to leave you high and dry when we'd built this reputation of being a band.
Yep.
So we finished on a high with him, and I think he appreciated that. I was really proud of the way that Vika and I handled our exit because we had been taught by our parents, you don't make an enemy, you make a friend. You always try to leave the way you started. And so we left and we worked really hard. Well, we were actually working all away on the sidelines in Breaks on Sorrows tours on gathering songs and writing with people like Paul Kelly and anyone who would help us get this record together. We drew on songs from all sorts of people, Mark Seymour, Tim Rogers, Wayne Burt, Stephen Cummings, and they all handed in their songs and we would practice at the Cherry Tree doing shows on our own until we were ready to make a record, and that was pretty soon after we left the Sorrows. We went in the studio and did that.
And what's the process for finding songs? You're the one, Linda, who tends to do the curating?
I'm the one who does the initial call.
Yeah.
Yeah. We decide when we decided, I think I kind of had less fear in that way. I didn't mind asking the question.
Yep.
And Vika and I had agreed. We do everything.
Yes.
We know exactly what the other person's doing.
But it needs to have one person.
But it needs to have one person do it. And that was my job. So I would get the songs. I would ask first of all. And then once we got the songs in, Vika and I would sit down and go through what we thought would work and what we thought wouldn't.
And so you asked Paul to produce the record?
Yes. Yeah, because
How
we'd
was
been
that?
working with him since 1991.
Well, he was helping us write.
Yeah.
We'd have weekly writing sessions, and so it was just sort of a natural thing when we made our first record, because it wasn't really our thing, songwriting, but he was saying, you really need to try, you need to do this. So
Yeah.
we wrote a lot of songs in the early days.
At his
didn't we?
house.
At Sycamore
How
Street.
would it work?
Mary Jo Kelly's place, and then a flat in St Kilda, and then he'd come
Sycamore
over to our
sessions,
place.
come over to Clifton Hill. It was nerve-wracking. It was so terrifying the first time, because we knew that we weren't going to just be sitting there listening to him play his songs. We knew what he was going to do, which was, okay, let's write a song
What do you
together.
got?
What do you got? And
And would you take lyrics in?
no,
No.
we didn't write like that. We wrote,
We'd never written before. This is the thing, Brian, we'd never written a song before. So when he came over for the first session, we didn't know what to expect. We were just like, okay, what do you do here? What
do we
happens?
do?
I thought he'd be there for an hour or so and piss off. He stayed all day. And I was like, okay, this is what it's like. Okay. It was
true.
And it was fun.
What, he'd have his guitar
Yes.
Yep.
and a notebook,
Yes.
exactly.
and would you be writing things?
We had notebooks too, and we'd always have lunch.
Yeah.
And we'd start off with a cup of tea, and then we would talk. And he would listen. He would make us talk. He was the one that brought us out of our shells. I know he's a very quiet person, but he was the one that he needed to hear what we'd been up to that week, or tell us a story about what you're up to, or, we'd start talking. And once we started talking, we'd be getting ideas for songs, and then he would write a line.
That was interesting. That was an interesting process to watch, because there'd be silence for long periods of time. It's like, someone going to tell a joke here, And after we'd tell him a story, there'd just be silence. And then all of a sudden he'd come out with a line, the most beautiful line of what we'd just been talking about. It's like,
Wow.
how did you do that, Linda? And then we'd go from there, and then that would be the starting point.
And then would he suggest a melody for that line, or would you perhaps?
We worked together on the melody.
Yeah.
But the lyrics, always the first line came from him, pretty much.
Yeah.
And we'd then throw in lines. We'd say things, if we got the courage. Took a while to get that courage up.
Yeah.
And then he was always really great, because he just,
Yeah.
even if it was a stinker,
Yeah.
you weren't made to feel like that.
No.
He'd write it down and probably just park it a bit, but he always made us feel like it was even. Yeah, that was very kind of him.
And what were some of the songs that you vividly remember from
We've Started a
those
Fire
sessions?
was the first song.
Oh, We've Started
But he
a
wrote
Fire.
that.
He wrote that.
I think 99 Years
That
we
was a
wrote
great
together.
one.
We're just telling a story about this guy that was a bit of a pain in the neck, sending me flowers and ringing me up.
How dare he?
Wouldn't leave me alone. I was telling Paul he was really annoying. So Paul just found that quite amusing and came out with the line, well, give me 99 years, I'll think it over. So we wrote a song about that. We wrote a song called The Parting Song.
That's right. We wrote Honey, Give Me One More Chance, Honey. Great song.
Quite a few songs. The Parting Song came up with a melody, an old Tongan nose flute melody. That melody, it started with the melody, that song, The Parting Song, and then the lyrics came.
And so then, when was it time to go into the studio for that first record?
3 years later. We started writing with Paul in 1991, and then it took a long time. It took 3 years to gather songs, and we were in the studio in 1994.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yep, takes a long time.
Yeah. But you had, as well as the songs that you did with Paul, there was a Mark Seymour, Tim Rogers. These are fine songwriters.
They are. And we weren't just writing with Paul. We would go around to Mark's place too, and his flat in St Kilda, and write with him. And just so that they could get an idea of where we were at. They didn't really know us, and we didn't really know what we wanted to sing. So we'd sit down, and that's how those songs would come out. They'd go, okay, maybe you've got a ballad with Paul, or you've got this sort of song. What about I write a sort of a more rockin' tune? You know?
Nick Barker was like that. Nick Barker was great like that. He was very... he'd always say to us, "Come on, girls, you got to write your own songs. You're gonna make any money in this business. You got to write your own songs." He'd say it to us all the time.
Right.
So he's very encouraging. I remember that in the early days.
Yeah.
So we did his song Gone Again. That was on the first album.
Yep. It was great fun.
And the one with the Mark Seymour song.
Yep. Mark Zimmer wrote "When Will You Fall for Me."
When
for
Will You
us.
Fall for Me? You hear it on the radio, it just jumps out at you. So what's that writing session like compared to, say, with Paul Kelly?
We were at Metropolis making the first album, and he came to the studio, he sat down at reception and said, I've got a song. And he played it for us. He said, but I haven't quite finished the bridge.
In the reception?
Yeah.
Yep. And so we
And
sat
Nick
there.
Cave was in the other room. I remember that.
That's right. And he sat down, he played it for us, and he goes, yeah, but I haven't finished the bridge. So we sat down, we finished the bridge together, and then we went in and recorded it. And then that was like Triple J just picked it up immediately. And it was, and I remember Peter Luscombe going, yeah, that's fantastic. You got on Triple J, that's amazing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, so what? You know, I just didn't realise how big a deal it was. It was, you know, that, you know, and they played it. It was on high rotation, you know, and I like that song even more now today than I did back then.
You don't get sick of singing it.
No.
When we heard the Mark's version, I could hear Vika singing it, and then I could hear the harmony underneath, and that's sort of where it took. We're like that with most songs.
Yeah.
We know straight away pretty much who's going to sing what and where we're going to harmonise.
Yeah.
It's natural.
It's more like a duet these days. We sing it more together these days, more so than the original. But,
So you're writing with these interesting people, but you're still singing behind others at this point. And I want to hear about singing with, say, someone like Renee. How was that?
well, she's really good fun.
Yeah.
Oh, she's amazing.
Well, we were fans of hers from Countdown 2.
Yes.
You know, we loved heading in the right direction and, you know, Say I Love You, songs like that. We were fans of hers already.
Yeah. So she gets you in.
Paul got her in.
Right.
Paul got her to come and produce.
Because husband had also played drums for Renee since he was 15 years old, right? Mm-hmm. So there was a history there.
And who's sort of directing the parts when you sing with Renee?
Renee. Renee.
It's hard to sing in front of Renee.
Yeah, of course.
She's such a, you know, she's one of the best.
Yeah. And is she tough with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She can be a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can be very hard. She can, she's not afraid of telling you off.
No.
But we'd worked with Vanetta, and Vanetta was tough too. Like
Not as tough as Renee.
but not in that way. But we knew you had to kind of pull your socks up when you were in the presence of somebody like that.
Yeah. Well,
Both of
Vanetta.
them.
Both of them.
I mean, the Rolling Stones, Boz Scaggs, Steely Dan.
Aretha and Ikette.
Yes.
Yep.
She was an Ikette.
Yeah. So she was the first person who taught us how to sing in the studio. And then the next great influence was Renee.
Renee.
Yeah.
Renee.
As a live singing or in the studio?
Studio.
Right.
Studio.
And what would she tell you? What sort of things?
Don't drink.
Right.
I remember her saying, when you have wine and you're going to do the session, you're singing out of tune.
She's so right.
And I went, no, you can't tell. She goes, okay, we'll do an experiment. You've had a wine, we'll record you. She recorded us. And then she goes, tomorrow, let's do the same song.
Yep.
Don't drink. And she was right.
Wow.
And she works really quickly,
Yeah.
incredibly fast. So you got to keep up. And then also to get different qualities in your voice, she would show us little tricks. I had to sing a ballad. I think it was Paul Kelly's If I Could Start Today Again, I think. And I was singing that and she said, oh, no, you sound a bit too pure. Just yell at the wall for a couple of minutes, please. So I had to do like a Barnsey and just scream.
Yeah.
And she go, right now, you try singing. She goes, yeah, your voice sounds better now.
So she wanted some roughness.
I remember her
So
saying
little
to me
tricks
too,
like
like
that.
we had to do a gospel song. It was, quite difficult, and she just got really frustrated with me because I was nervous. I was nervous about how I was going to sing this song. She goes, if you're worried about where you're going to be, you're not going to do the thing that we need you to do. So just sing and then trust yourself you're going to land on the right note anyway. It was a great, kind of just let it go lesson in, don't try to overthink it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about going to Tonga to sing for the King. How was that?
It was his 80th birthday.
Yep.
Brian.
King of Tonga.
King of Tonga turned 80. So we went there. actually, we went there and everything had happened on this day. There was a national weight loss competition. The king had lost a lot of weight because he was known, as the world's largest monarch. So he lost something like 80 kilograms, and then he put the whole country on a diet. They all went on a diet, had a national weight loss competition, and the day we sang for the king, the winner of the competition was announced. They did a aerobics demonstration on his lawn, and then we sang for the king.
That's just all in one day.
Yes.
But there was a lot of protocol involved. It was like, we weren't allowed to be higher than his head, couldn't turn our back on him. When we moved away, we have to, back
Walk
away.
backwards.
Yeah, we had to wear certain costume for the performance.
Did they tell you what to sing?
Mum did. Mum told us what to sing.
Yeah, she chose the song.
Yeah.
How many songs?
We sang a gospel song and we sang
Grandpa's
song, which is a song we wrote. The first song we ever wrote on our own was a song we called Grandpa's Song. And it's an apology song that we wrote for our grandfather when he came to Australia to meet us for the first time. So it's kind of it's an interesting song because it deals with embarrassment of culture and our upbringing, and it was a very moving song for our mum. So we sang that. She chose that for us to sing on the King's lawn. And it was hard to sing because it's, we're in Tonga in his country.
And when you say it was an apology, it was apologising for the way you'd behaved.
the way I behaved, Brian. Linda's an angel.
I
was the devil.
What had you done, if I may ask?
Well, I was embarrassed about being half Tongan. So when I was in primary school, I was in grade 1, and my grandfather came to pick me up from school. And he'd only been in the country for a couple of weeks, and he thought he'd take a stroll up the street, pick me up and walk me home.
Yep.
And he was waiting there, and he was wearing his tupenu, which is like a Tongan, lap sarong. And he was wearing his white shirt, his sandals. But, people weren't getting around Doncaster in sarongs in those days.
Up at Shopping Town.
Yeah,
at Shopping Town.
That's right. So, and I got teased a lot when I remember, in prep in grade 1 for being half Tongan. And so to have him standing at the gate and reinforcing that to all my, I didn't really have any friends at school, it just made everything just 100 times worse. So I yelled at him and I wouldn't walk home with him. So the song is about that. It's an apology.
Yeah. And did he accept?
He never heard the song.
He died. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got added meaning.
Yep.
I wonder what the king thought.
He fell asleep.
He had a big day.
The weight loss competition took it out of him.
He'd lost a lot of weight.
No,
He tapped his toe.
He was told. He was told.
Right.
Yeah, about the song. And then the great thing was that on that trip as well, we got to sing it for our grandmother, who'd never heard us sing before. Like
Beautiful.
yeah.
The other travelling story I want to hear is when you went to England and you spent a little bit of time at Peter Gabriel's studio, Real World, and sang with Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was just one of those strange things that happened. Well, Peter Gabriel had invited us to make a record at his Real World studios because we've been touring with WOMAD. And the whole idea behind that was he was trying to get everybody who he had invited to collaborate in some way or form.
Yep.
Didn't have to be a whole record. It could be one song. It could be singing backing vocals on someone's record or just guesting, kind of like Nana Cherry and Yusu Nadua, kind of, that he wanted to, I think he wanted to hear a cross pollination. So we were all asked to try and actively seek out someone to collaborate with. And Vika and I were just too shy to ask anyone at the Real World recording week. It was just like, you ask, no.
So they're all there.
No, well, Iggy Pop and Johnny Depp had happened to come to Reading Festival and they were in that our backstage tent when we were doing a gospel show. And you can take over the rest because I tend to waffle on.
Well, they were in our backstage area, and Linda saw them because she came off stage because I was singing, and then she went back on stage. She goes, you never guess who's backstage. And
Vika was doing a solo.
Yeah, she goes, well, when you walk off, just don't freak out, all right? And So we walked off stage, and sure enough, there's Iggy Pop and Johnny Depp.
Hopping into the rider.
Well,
I mean, what are they doing in your back?
Well, it was raining and they were wet and cold.
Right.
And ours was kind of close. They just sort of lifted up the tent and sat down.
Yeah, and so we just got to chatting after the show, and then sort of mentioned that we had to.
Yes, you had a task.
We had a task.
We didn't think that we just were sort of going, Iggy said, how's it going? And we said, we're great, but tomorrow we've got to do a collaboration. We haven't asked anyone yet. It's really hard. We don't know what to do. And then he said,
I'll sing with you.
what about me? And we just went,
Okay.
But it's tomorrow, 3:00, you're free. He goes, yeah, I'll be there. And
Turned up on time.
Really?
Yeah. With
And
Johnny.
whose was the song?
Paul Kelly's song, I Know Where to Go to Feel Good, we did. And
he was
he did 2 takes.
pretty wonderful.
Was he?
Yeah.
Good singer, good
Good
vibe.
vibe.
good vibe.
Yep.
Yeah, really lovely
He was
person.
gorgeous.
A gentleman.
And, he got us out of a real pickle.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think, kind of one of the great days for us in the recording studio because we were fans of his as well.
Of course.
And just the fact that he turned up on time and said he'd do what he did,
Incredible.
I think, I just think at the time it was all a bit much. It was like, this is unbelievable, it's like, it was all a bit much to take in, wasn't it?
He rocked up with Johnny Depp and Kate Moss.
Yeah.
And then he also decided to bring Vernon Reid from Living Colour. And so they all rocked up the path together. It wasn't just Iggy was enough, but the rest of them too, listening to
A little entourage.
listening to him do his take. It was really sweet.
He sort of got a gist of what the song was about, but he did ask, because it's a bit,
The songs,
I Know Where to Go to Feel Good. It's about making yourself feel good, really. And he said, what's it? Oh, he goes, I had a feeling. Oh, okay. But he had the perfect voice to carry it off because, he goes, I know where to go to feel good.
That's all he had to do.
Yeah.
We do the rest. All you got to do is sing one line and you did
And
it.
Paul must have been wrapped.
Yeah. Well, I think he was a bit surprised.
Yes. Guess who I've got?
Guess who we did a song with? Yeah, it got back to Australia pretty quickly.
That's
We'd done
great.
that. Yeah.
That's great. Let's jump forward a little bit, and there's a change of pace because you both had kids
Yeah.
around about the early 90s, and you just stepped back for a while. Or did you both step back as much as each other? What happened?
I had a daughter in 1997.
Yep.
Linda had
One in 1999.
98.
Yeah.
We decided
We
to
were
have
kind of
kids
going
at the
through
same
the
time.
wilderness a little bit.
Were you?
We kind of just,
Why?
I don't know.
A bit
why.
rudderless. I think it happens, I think we had put out, my understanding of it is that we couldn't be pigeonholed. We didn't stick to a certain genre.
Yeah.
We took little direction or none from a record company who were quite wonderful,
They gave you a degree of freedom.
They gave us a lot of freedom. Unfortunately, we
Maybe
took
too
it.
much.
Maybe too much. Yeah, so we couldn't. We just sort of thought, oh, we'll do a gospel album. Oh, no, we'll do a country album. Oh, now we'll do a culturally,
Yes.
appropriate record, Princess Taboo, and we'll do a rock record. We're sort of all over the shop. And then we kind of ran out of steam, I think.
Yep.
We thought, what are we going to do next? And so we had children. We'd planned to have kids together,
Yep.
which was a good move. But then we kind of just went, oh, we're not really writing many songs. We're bringing up our kids.
Let's open a shop.
Let's open a kids' shop. Now, things started to get a little bit quieter, on the music front, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember too much of that time. It was we were kind of just a bit directionless.
But also flat out raising families.
Yeah, but it is an important part. It's an important part of our career now because I think it's great to have, great success, and you sort of sometimes think of yourself as successful when you're busy.
Yep.
But you still got to see yourself as an artist when you're not busy.
Yeah.
And I think we never gave up on that, although I did stop for a while.
Yeah.
We always loved to sing together. And even though we weren't making any records, we knew that when we did work together, it still sounded good. So we didn't give up on working towards a long career still.
No.
It's just sort of like just floating for a while.
But if you're running a kids' clothes shop, that's a big commitment.
Yeah.
That was more Linda's thing.
Right.
She kindly asked me to go into it with her, but it wasn't really my thing. I didn't like it.
Right. How was she in the shop, Linda?
Vic was fantastic because we had no retail experience. And, people would come into the shop and say, we would have quite high-priced items, and Vika and I would always argue about the price. Vika would go, that's too expensive. I go, yeah, but we've got to make money,
Yeah.
And so we had I remember one day we had this range of baby slings, and this man came in, he goes, I'd like a baby sling for my new baby. Vika goes, sure, we've got this, but it's $100.
It's a lot of money.
And he went, I'll take one, thanks. She went, really?
You're trying to talk him out of it.
Often Linda, when customers would come in, she'd shuffle me off to the back.
I go, go out the back and wrap it, thanks, Vic.
Yeah, no,
And then
retail
Vic would go,
didn't
what
suit
sort of
me.
wrapping do you want with the scissors? This.
Because so many women were indecisive, and that would drive me crazy. I can't stand that,
She's
and
scared
they'd
with
and
the
ah over,
scissors.
well, like, get my baby the red one or the yellow one, which one? It's like, just pick. So, and so I left. The
She was
shop.
like the soup Nazi of kids
Yes.
retail. People would come in just to get entertained. It was good.
So I couldn't handle it, Brian. So I went back and worked as a legal secretary for a while,
Right.
which I really enjoyed. Yeah.
So not playing a little bit.
A little bit.
But not a lot. So what brought you back to playing, to singing?
We joined Paul's band, didn't we?
Oh, it was Meet Me in the Middle of the Air with
Yeah.
the Australian Art Orchestra
Okay.
and Paul Kelly. Yeah,
Right.
he asked us to sing that show with him, and that kind of brought us back. You think?
Yeah,
was
I think that was it. Yeah, because we went from pretty much because legal secretary and I was running the shop, and we went back to do that one project, and then
Yep.
Paul asked us to join his band
Yep.
as more permanent members.
Yep.
And then once you're in that scene, like he's a hard worker.
Yeah.
We started touring a lot more, and the more we were touring, the busier we got with our own shows.
Yes.
But at the same time, we were kind of rediscovering our voice, I think.
And the Merry Soul sessions?
Merry
happening?
Soul sessions happened. Rock Whiz happened.
Yep.
That was a good thing too. It was sort of
Changed our
it
life.
changed our life really. It sort of introduced us again it reminded people of
Yeah.
who we were, because
Yeah.
every week we were.
Something about that telly, isn't there?
It's
that
amazing.
small screen.
It's
It's
exactly right.
amazing.
You can tour your lives and no one really, we're constantly being asked, you're still singing.
Yeah.
We go on television with Rock Whiz,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then suddenly everybody knows what we're
You're
doing.
in people's lounge
Yeah.
rooms.
So
that changed.
that's when things sort of really started to shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like and then it was like, okay.
And the grand final.
That was
the
amazing.
AFL Grand Final. What year? 2016.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a perfect storm in a weird way, Brian. I think, thank you for Rock Whiz.
Oh,
Thank you for having
our
us on
pleasure.
board.
Thank
because
you.
It was that and that touring, that heavy level of touring, and then the exposure that we got with the grand final, because all those years of singing in front of big crowds and, live
Yeah.
in different situations and television,
Yep.
it kind of all came together at the grand final because...
Well, what happened was, I think Frank Stavala from Premier,
Yeah.
our agent, he could see we were a little bit, wandering around a bit, sort
Yep.
of like, you don't know what the hell you're doing, do you, girls? So he took us out for dinner, and he invited Lisa Palermo, who was his assistant, and she was looking to,
Yes.
become a manager. And he took us all out for dinner. He goes, right, this is what you're going to do, girls. Lisa's going to manage you. And we went, okay. Great.
we'd already
'Cause
thought of that.
We'd already thought of it.
Okay.
We liked Lisa.
Yep.
Because we dealt with
What's
her at
not to
Premier.
like?
Yeah. And so that was the first gig she got us, was the grand final, singing the anthem.
Good gig.
Good gig, good manager. And we're
Good
like,
work, Lisa. She's just
Well,
over
Vika's
there.
first reaction wasn't yes. It was more, that's too, it's too big, isn't it?
well, everyone that sings it gets crucified. It's a really
course.
hard thing to do.
Except you guys.
Well,
You pulled it off.
it was Vika's idea to sing a cappella, and I think that was a brilliant stroke.
Stroke of
Yeah,
genius.
because we knew that slapback can be the thing that can bring you undone.
Yes.
And that was our one stipulation. It was like, okay, we'll do it, but we have to be able to do it a cappella.
You know, there was a bit of umming and ahhing, toing and froing about that. But we knew we could do it, you know, and that was the thing. Yeah. Even though there was 100,000 people at that game, it was a big match. And
yeah, we knew.
But we knew we could do it because we had that experience behind us. We had that years and years and years of singing from childhood.
Yeah.
And so all we had to do was just sing like we used to do in our bedroom, really. Yeah. We just had to take our mind back to that moment and look at one another and just get our starting note, and then we knew we'd be fine.
How much rehearsal did you do?
Not much.
I think because we grew up listening to the national anthem as kids, we had to sing it at assembly.
We didn't listen to it. It was drummed into us.
We knew it.
Yes.
We knew it already. So that was half the battle.
Yes.
Yeah. So that wasn't the battle. It wasn't the lyrics or anything. It wasn't the melody. We knew it.
It was just overcoming nerves.
It was overcoming the crowd.
Yeah. And that crowd, are you looking at them? You are?
I was
There's
looking,
100,000 people.
Yeah, it was incredible because we knew it was like the football players are there. You know, they're all standing there waiting to do the biggest game of their lives. The last thing they want to do is for you to take your time and do a long-winded version. Just get it over and done with. That was one thing we wanted to do. But we also knew this was a great moment for us. So I said to Vika, I remember saying, Vika was humming the note because she had to get the note, the starting note. I said, just don't worry about it. We're going to be great. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy this because this is not going to happen again. And once we got the note, we just looked at each other and gave ourselves a little hand squeeze and off we went.
Yeah.
And it opened a few doors, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I don't know if we were... A lot of people didn't know who we really were.
Well, that's the thing. You can tour, you can sing have a top 5 hit with Chain to the Wheel and tour the world and be, working 6 nights a week with the Sorrows and then doing all sorts of things. But there's still people out there that haven't got a clue who you are, and there's like, well, who are those girls? Like,
so we were battling that.
Yeah, but that's a challenge too.
We like that.
we
like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like when that's kind of like where we do our best work, I think, when we're put under enormous pressure. Yeah. But also it was that we kind of wanted to show people that we could do something with a little backing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see that as the beginning of a particular chapter. The next thing is the lockdown, COVID, but you really made some hay, didn't you? That ISO sessions.
Yeah. I think the grand final was a turning point for our careers, both business side of things. I think it's important to acknowledge that the business side and the music side were coming together.
Yes.
And for successful careers, you need to have both working in harmony, I think, for us particularly, because there's 2 of us.
Yeah.
So because we had a manager that believed in us, it's hard to get in between Vika and I because we're both quite headstrong.
Yep.
And so it was Lisa's idea when lockdowns happened and everything was falling apart to do the sing-song. Yeah. And we trust her. And so Vika straight away, Vika tends to say no straight away, but Vika went yes straight away. And Lisa said, okay, Lisa was almost not going to say, why don't you do a song every Sunday and put it out live on social media?
Yeah.
She almost didn't say it because,
she knew how scared we were of social media. We'd never used it. We didn't really have a Facebook. We had Facebook, but we never interacted with it. We didn't do Instagram. We had no idea. We didn't realise the power of it.
Yeah.
And until lockdown.
So when Vika said yes, Lisa said when, we said tomorrow. And we decided to just draw on all those gospel songs we grew up listening to and singing because it was easy. We only needed one instrument, and if we didn't have one instrument, we could do it ourselves, a cappella.
Yeah, that's right.
And
how many did you do?
12 all up. So the first one we had was Dion Harini on our vicar's porch, and that was up above my head. And then we took it to my house and started with Cameron. So we had a bit of a revolving cast, but only a tight one. Dion on guitar, Cameron Bruce on piano remotely.
Yep.
He would record something and just send it on his iPhone, and we'd sing along on Vika's Bluetooth speaker. Then we got Paul in to do a duet. Then we got Diesel in to play guitar on one song. Then we got my daughter Kiki to come and sing on one. John, Vika's husband, played drums in the lounge room. And that was it.
I think it was exciting because it was homegrown.
I think so.
And I think we loved that. Plus, it was gospel.
Yeah.
And there's something about gospel music, even for non-believers.
Yeah.
It's like a hint of what could be, but it's joyous and it's uplifting. And we needed it, didn't we?
Well, we tried to make it that way. We were
Yeah,
very
that was the
conscious.
focus.
That was the focus.
And did that lead, do you think, quite nicely into the weight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did actually.
We made 3 records in lockdown.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Remarkable.
we
the
made-
best of.
We released Akilotoa, the best of,
Yep.
in the middle of the sing-song.
Which was a huge number
It was our
one.
first number 1.
Yep.
That was our first number 1. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a big moment. And then we released Sunday, the Gospel According to ISO,
Yep.
on the back of the sing-songs again. And then at the same time we were working towards the weight. And the weight was meant to go first, but it had to...
Oh, really?
It was meant to be the record that we released first.
Okay.
But because of all the interruptions, it came last.
Right.
Yeah. And it was the greatest time we've ever had in the studio, I think.
Well, that were the 3, like, the weight went number 2 on the ARIA chart. The gospel one, I think, was number 2. I think we got pipped by Marilyn Manson, that one. I know. It's like, hey, now that all this hoo-ha's happened, can we please be number 1? Can we go back and...
Surely.
and then
take
we
it
had
off
the
him.
anthology, which was number 1. So that's probably the most success we've had. I think COVID has been a blessing
In a
for our
tight-
career.
In such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we worked hard.
And similar format, you did a bit of the curating.
Yeah, I did
Yep.
it again. Well, Vika was touring and was very successful touring the world with Etta James.
That's right. And was that a great experience, Vika, the Etta James show?
Yeah, it was, Brian. Yep.
Yeah.
I learnt a lot.
I bet.
Yeah, I learnt a hell of a lot. It was a
Yeah.
really tough sing. So Eda's tough. My favourite singer, only because she had a long career and could sing so many different styles. So I
Yes.
enjoyed that part of the show.
Yep.
And just having such an interesting life, a long career. I really enjoyed that part of telling her story and how she, battled addiction and then fought that and overcame that. I connected with all that and thought, what an amazing story to tell.
Yeah.
So, I'd never done anything like that before. I started off very shaky, but I found my feet eventually and ended up doing it for about 5 years. And I think, while I was doing that, I was people were coming to see the show that had never seen us before.
No.
Never seen Linda and
But
I.
they'd never seen you act too.
No,
No.
yeah.
That was what I remember. I saw it at the AF and I was really proud of you that you were, you weren't just singing, and they were incredible songs, but you were telling her story.
Yeah. So that was hard. That was the hardest bit, having to narrate, I think.
Yes.
But I enjoyed it. And then I liked the challenge.
Yep.
Yeah. And then so a lot of people saw that show, and I think that helped us when we, ended up coming together again and singing and writing our own show, like Between Two Shores. We ended up writing a show.
That's right.
Yes. And a lot of people came and saw that show. And I think, because they'd never heard, a lot of people came to see the Etta show, I don't think they had any idea who I was.
No.
No.
They just came because they liked Etta James.
Yeah.
And then thought, oh, okay, she sings with her sister. Oh, okay, we'll go check them out.
Yeah.
So then...
And then you did
a
an
bit of a
Adelaide
crowd.
Cabaret Festival.
Yeah, through
didn't you?
Julia. Julia was
Yes.
the director of the Cabaret
Yes.
Festival, and she came up with the idea with Lisa, saying, "Look, I don't want just a normal show." So thank you, Julia, because it made us work.
Yeah.
She said, she said to Lisa, can we get them to do something different? Not like the normal show they do. And so we had to sit down and write a show, and we would do that every week for a couple of months, and we came up with Between Two Shores, which is basically the telling of our musical journey and our lives through songs that meant something to us.
But also through story.
Through
So
story,
the
we told our
storytelling.
stories. Yeah.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
We had to write a script.
Did you refine as you went?
Yeah, we
Yes.
did.
Yeah, I
and we
bet.
did the songs as well. So, that was a good thing to do. That was interesting, like being able to do the show and go, okay, that worked. That's what was interesting. That worked,
Yeah.
that didn't. Let's
Yeah.
let's do this.
Tomorrow
That's-
night,
tomorrow
let's
night.
do it this way. It does work. You good storytellers, but maybe that's been refined.
Yes.
It has been. And we're always trying to learn that.
Yeah.
I think as we're getting older, we are willing to take more risks we're harder on each other, we're harder on ourselves, and I think that's just because we've learnt don't muck around, try to be too nice amongst ourselves. We're not going to get the result we want unless we can actually be honest, and that's been a really good thing.
Yep.
That's been really valuable. Yeah, I really like that.
So the wait was worth it. It was a remarkable record and some incredible songwriters. Mick Thomas got a Guernsey. Is it Glenn?
Richards.
Glenn Richards. I loved his song.
2 songs from Glenn.
Yes, 2 songs from Glenn.
Yep, and Kasey and Paul and Bernard Fanning,
Ben Salter.
Ben Salter,
Yeah.
Eva Seymour,
Yeah, Mark Seymour's daughter.
Matt
Yes.
Walker.
How beautiful.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. That was a beautiful thing. She's the youngest songwriter on the
Yeah.
record,
She's wonderful.
and that came in quite late.
Yep.
And lyrically, it was, don't think I can sing that. And Linda said,
Because of the content.
yes. And it was written from a young woman's point of view.
Yep.
She wrote it when she was 19.
Yeah. So Linda took it back to Eva and said, look, we really love it, but so she goes, no problem.
Wow.
She
so
changed-
she would modify.
She changed it, yeah.
It wasn't, it was like, this is what we're getting back to, is what we were saying before when we get given songs. Like, we were in a position in our lives at 55 where we weren't trying to say, you can walk all over me. There was
No.
a bit in the song which is a little bit like, I'm being taken advantage of here, which is
Yes.
not something, an impression that we wanted to give over.
No.
So we had to swing it. She had to flip it, and she was very willing to do that. And it saved us. For us, it changed the perspective of the song. We're in control, not the other way around.
Yep.
And then it was like one of my favourite tracks on the record.
Yeah.
I really love singing that song. We threw everything we had at that because we only had like an hour to do it.
Yes. I love the Raise Your Hand.
Raise your hand. Kasey and Brandon Dodd wrote that song. She
Yeah.
wrote that especially for us after we asked her to write songs for the record. And she was overseas on tour in America and sent 5 songs 2 weeks later. And that was the first song we heard, and it set the tone for that record.
Yes.
And
Well, it's so defiant,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
And it's also got a sort of a nod to your gospel roots.
Yeah, she gets that.
Yeah, it's like she understands who you are
Yep.
and what you represent.
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got that. And so did Brandon, like, just immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the pig face and calendula.
We sort of had a little tuffle over that one, didn't we?
Did you?
Well, I wanted to sing it. But
And you wanted to sing it too?
Yeah.
that doesn't happen very often.
No.
Well, I don't
Okay.
normally sing songs like that. I normally get the ballad, and I thought this is good. We should. This is our record. We
Yeah.
can show off each
Change
other's.
it up.
Yeah, Vika did "My Heart Is in the Wrong Place," a big ballad, or we switched it a bit
Yeah.
on the record, and we played around with that.
Yeah.
And that.
And it was incredibly successful.
Yeah.
And you're about to go out on the road, do a national tour.
We've got backing singers, Brian,
Yes.
and they're amazing.
We've never had backing singers before.
Never. And they just have really lifted our sound. It's just the kick up the
Yeah.
backside we needed,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And it's changed it. So I'm really
Really?
excited. I really want people to hear it because it's a little vocal section, and
Yeah.
it's not just singing oohs and ahs up the back.
No.
They are quite prominent. We've got them
And
to
so
sing.
you've written the parts for them or have you worked them out together?
We did a bit of both.
And how great for an audience to come to see a show that features the album, but then the songs are just a slightly bit different.
Well, it is. It's every single song. The tour would be the Wait and favourites, so
Yeah,
all the
right.
songs off the Wait and old favourites too, like When Will You Fall For Me and Never Let Me Go, Down on the Jetty, Grandpa's Song, things like that.
The new songs will be mixed in with the old ones.
Right.
So it's a bit of a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next?
Got a couple of things.
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, is it
Of course
We-
it's
we-
exciting.
We've written a book.
our first book?
Yes, our first book.
Yeah. And it's a story, not just focused on music. We were approached to write a book, and our first thought was, wow, okay, what?
No.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. The correct answer is always no.
See? But so it basically starts from the beginning.
The ups and the downs.
The ups and the downs.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
we're
a
pretty
memoir.
frank.
Yeah, that's been hard though. That for me was like pulling teeth.
I
But
bet.
you know, Linda loves to write. I'm like, oh yeah, but I'm like, who'd want to hear that? You know. But then I found it quite cathartic.
I bet.
Well, it's called No Bull. The book.
No.
Bull.
The penny just dropped.
Yeah.
No bull.
Yeah.
No Bull. And on top of that, we went into the studio and we made a Christmas record,
Great.
which I think, you know, it's a rock and roll Christmas record. And we
Yeah.
wanted to kind of make it rock and roll girl group style, like Sophisticated Boom Boom. So it's a bit of both.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. And that was fun.
I bet.
That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just, it's called Gee Whiz, It's Christmas.
Gee whiz.
Gee whiz.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So that's it
Well,
for this year.
Plenty on. Beautiful. Well, it's really been a delight. And,
Thanks,
and
Brian.
thank you for being part of this. But thank you for all the music and the dance moves and the BVs and the front vocals. You've got incredible pride in each other.
Yeah.
And a clear love for each other and a love for what you're doing. And we all fall in love with you.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Done. That'll do.